bring in Doug Burns. Doug is a former federal prosecutor, and he's here to discuss the legal case Dr. Dao has against United. Good to see you, Doug.
Thank you, Vlad.
So you've been watching this all along with us. Walk us through the legalities that are involved here. You heard very clearly from the lawyer for the family saying that removal of a passenger is the way that he was forcibly removed is against the law.
There's two parts to the analysis, and I actually like the way he laid it out at the beginning, and so let me go through it. One is, did they have the right to remove him from the flight in the first place? That would normally be in United's favor if it was one passenger for another. A couple of aviation experts I spoke to said they use formulas, who bought the ticket first, who paid what, and we've all been there where they say, you know, will you accept money to be bumped off the flight? However, here they were putting 4 of their own people, flight crew people, on the flight. And I think that makes that worse for United on the first part of my analysis, which is, did they have the right to kick him off the plane? So that's bad for United. The next part, the lawyer stated it perfectly well, albeit in, you know, obviously his fashion, his lens. But the point is, did they use unreasonable force? That's a question that will be debated back and forth on both sides. I'm reminded of, you know, law school moot court competitions. One side will say, of course it's unreasonable. Look at the video. Look what they did to the poor guy. And that's a perfectly viable argument. The other side's going to say, however, an airplane's space is very difficult. It's incredibly narrow. That's largely why this happened. Additionally, you have the safety and security of all the other people on board. Mind you, they weren't in the air. That's a whole different discussion. And I've been in interference with flight crew cases. I've been in 3 of them. 2 as a prosecutor, 1 as a defense lawyer. But the point I'm trying to make is they're going to turn around and say the guy was unreasonable, he was fighting back. They're going to have to look at the video frame by frame, millisecond by millisecond. That's what we do in cases, and decide whether A, the force was reasonable, B, it was unreasonable over the top. It does appear, obviously, to a reasonable person looking at that video that they may have gone too far, and that's the essence of the claim. So that's the legal case. The other point I would make that's interesting is you have the ostensible lawsuit against United and then against the actual personnel who injured the man. The lawyer, I'm not going to say cute, that's unfair to him, but the point is he went into a whole thing. You guys may have noticed the captain's responsible for everything. That was his way of framing out legally that United's automatically responsible for the conduct of those officers. I'm not so sure that's necessarily the case. United's going to turn around and say, we called for the man to be peaceably removed. And when this happened, this incident, we had no way to know that. We didn't anticipate that. We didn't want that to happen. So that's going to be another legal issue.
Doug, before we bring in our transportation correspondent, Kris Van Cleave, I'm just curious, how expensive do you think this mistake could end up costing United?
Well, it's a great question because, first of all, it already cost them. Their stock went down. People were throwing around a figure of $1 billion loss in their market capitalization and so forth. I forgot to say earlier, and I'll say it now, you have 2 discussions, public relations, obviously, and then law. I'm not a public relations expert per se, but obviously this is a horrible thing. The optics are terrible. It looks horrible and all of that. So to answer your question, hard to say whether or not, you know, United's customer base, you know, will stay with them.
If he was your client, how much would you go for?
Oh, how much would I settle the case for? That's a little bit hard to say. I didn't realize you were asking me the settlement value. I mean, the lawyer also was interesting. He was kind of working 2 sides of the room on that. I certainly hope he's fine, not saying he's fine now. And then he was saying he had a concussion and a broken nose and 2 teeth knocked out. That's fairly serious injuries. So it's hard to say what they'll settle it for. There's 2 completely different schools of thought. They're going to sit in the corporate suite and they say, one guy's going to say, no, fight this out to the end, settle it for a small amount. We're not going to be extorted and bullied. And then the other side, I'm reading your mind, is, well, wait a minute, the public relations nightmare, the sheer cost that this could be, let's get out quick, even if we have to pay him a more sizable amount.